Hello, welcome back to the James Ramblin' Reviews for yet another episode. In today's episode, I'm actually going to be bringing you another edition of a Indian cinematic experience that I had a few days ago, where I actually went to see the movie called David or however you pronounce it, and it is actually my first time seeing an Indian movie in the language called Malayalam, right? And it took me a few attempts to pronounce that because obviously it's not something I know out of the ordinary sort of thing. So there's all of that to be considered. And so for a bit of context here, with this Indian kind of cinematic experience type of stuff I've been going through is that if you don't know already, I have been getting interested by these Indian movies, and I just see the entertainment value in them and how they're so crazy, so bonkers and over the top, and I just keep getting addicted and keep interested in this kind of genre because it's giving me that entertainment and stuff like that. And obviously, because of that interest of watching them on Netflix, right, it's transpired into the curiosity of what is it like, what is it actually like at the cinema. And so my first experience with Daku Maharaj back in January of this year, just last month there in 2025, stuff like that, absolutely had a good time and a good blast with it. So there's definitely that. But I'm going to give you a bit of a rundown of what David is all about, right, without spoiling it. So what you have here is you kind of have this revenge redemption arc movie about this boxer called Abu. But then there's this Turkish guy, right? He's this boxer, and then he realizes there's something going wrong and all that kind of stuff. So you have that guy Abu, right? And you've got this Turkish guy. But obviously, because it's an Indian movie, it's not just going to be about these two characters going up against each other, is it really? So you've got all these other elements in here. You're going to have those bits of action, going to have like a bit of a romance, drama, love interest story, and then you'll have, all of that kind of stuff. And you'll have a bit of music as well. So it's like an action, boxing, like a sports drama, action, musical drama movie sort of thing. So there's definitely all of that. And so, how did I actually feel about this movie, David? Well, I actually had a blast with the film. I think it was really entertaining. The movie is over 2 hours, which is pretty much to be expected with an Indian movie. And even with that considered, still enjoyed it. And yes, there was an intermission again as well for this Indian movie. It's usually 10 minutes. So in that 10 minutes, I do remember actually grabbing like a set of nachos and then going back to my seat and stuff like that. So there's definitely all of that. So what I will say as well is that the aspect of the Malayalam or whatever I said earlier, right? The aspect of that was interesting to me because I felt like the movie flowed a bit differently because it was a different language. So this is the type of Indian movie where you don't have, 10, 15, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 extra added on people just dancing about and going doom kind of thing, right? There's a few moments in the film where people are singing and dancing, but most of the time it's just characters talking, or it's like, when it gets to the final act of what happens with the two guys going up against each other, right? So there's all of that. So there's all of that, and I did enjoy the film, and I feel like I would go and see a Malayalam, however you say it, right? Right, I would see kind of that movie again. I actually really wouldn't mind seeing any type of Indian movie in any language that's presented at this point. Like, see if an Indian movie was in Punjabi, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, all of these languages. I really wouldn't mind as long as I'm getting entertainment out of this. I'm gonna have a good time and stuff like that. So that is my review of David. I would actually give this movie like a solid, solid like 7 out of 10. It's an above average fun enough experience at the cinema, and definitely it is a different experience going to see this kind of thing at the cinema because I also felt like with this movie, they weren't blotting out the name David, like how they were doing Daku Maharaj, and they were shouting and belting him out really loud. In this movie, you could hear a lot of the audience members laughing along with me, right? And just before we end this video, I actually have an interesting thing that happened after I watched this movie. So I was actually in the lift with a few Indian people, right? And so what I said was, I actually quite enjoyed the film, right? And they were speaking in their own language, and I was like, oh, I actually quite enjoyed this film. And then this guy comes to me and he says, "Oh, so you like boxing? Do you go to the boxing events and stuff like that?" But I just sat here and told him, you know what, man, I just come here because Indian movies give me entertainment, and I kind of just left it at that, you know. What I mean, so it's kind of being honest with the guy. So that was kind of interesting, added to that experience, you know. When you talk, you know, especially when you watch a movie and then you talk to people after it, it has this like ongoing effect where you can't stop thinking about it, can't stop talking about it, stuff like that. So yeah, that's my review of David. Hope you enjoyed this review and stay tuned for more like it. I do hope to do more Indian reviews. So yeah, bye. David, Malayalam, Malayalam.